Joe?
Where's it, E-School?
Yeah, grade 4. Because it looks like.
No, it's for the year. It's a 1 year. You can, okay, I know who that is, yes. Thank you for clarifying. You can, according to the teacher's contract, you can request up to a year. She just had a baby. You can request up to 1 year leave of absence for child rearing, which is then goes to the superintendent for approval, and her leave was approved. So we've hired a long-term sub to fill in her position.
Okay. So then one of these other grade 4 teachers is just a long-term 1 year
Yes.
sub position?
Yes.
Is there a cost differential
Savings.
with that?
Because the other teacher, the teacher we hired has fewer years of experience, so that teacher's starting on a lower step, so it's actually a cost savings.
And there's a posting for a long-term sub at East, too. I think I saw one today. Is that something different?
I'm gonna have to look and get back to you, I can't. I've done a lot of postings in the past few days, they're all starting to,
Yeah, no, that's
mix
fine.
together.
I
And I
was
can
trying to
certainly get back to you by
figure out.
tomorrow, and if that, but it should, I'm not, I'll have to look before I answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bissetta,
Yes.
Southeast School.
Southeast School, I'm gonna try to make this short. I'm gonna ask the board if they would allow me to table this until another meeting in the future. Since the time I put this on the agenda, of course, two things have changed. I want to be able to bring the new superintendent up to speed on what Southeast School and all its, all the history there a little bit. So I'm asking the board if I could table this one.
Table. It's just a discussion item, so.
Thank you.
If you don't have anything to discuss, we'll discuss it at another day.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right.
Standing, you're up next too.
Oh, keep standing.
Going to girls softball field. This is
boys-
Board of Ed calisthenics here. Wait till you're down to make you get back up.
Yes.
Boys and girls softball field, the renovation, okay, this has been on, I've been waiting for this for a while. At the end of last year, when I brought this to the board for approval, if they wanted to go forward with the changes that I had given you, I think there was a new backstop, there was some dugouts, there was a fence that was gonna go around, we were gonna add some power, if we remember, for a future scoreboard. The question came up, what if we put lights? And I said I would get back to you with pricing, so I included that in your packet. Since that time, if we all recall, we took some of that money from that particular project, and we pulled it out of the budget and we used it for operating. So that kind of put the project on hold for a little while. It's still on hold. It's being, those monies since that time have been put back into the project, that $114,000. But however, I don't know how the board wishes to go forward with this, because by putting lights into there, you're adding $160-some odd thousand to the project. Is that something we want to wait for till the end of this year to add to the budget next year?
Your original project was how much?
$130,000.
And that's what we have, right?
That's what we had. We spent some money on.
That we had to use some last
We
year,
used some
but
on engineering, and
Right.
we used some on some architect fees, okay? And that brought us down to about $114,500. If we're going to add lights to the project, it's gonna be another $161,871, which will bring that balance up. That needed would be $276,411. So we would have to add another $162,000 to the capital budget, I'm assuming next year.
can the work that was budgeted for this year be done independently of the lighting, or would it all be
I
connected?
think you're asking a contractor to do a little bit much there if we're gonna try to resoil and reseed and regrade a field and then go out there and tear some ditches in there and put some light poles in it. putting some light poles in is gonna be an extensive job. It's gonna track it up, so I would prefer to make it a good project, not only worthwhile, but to be a good steward of the project and the monies. I would do it all at once and schedule it like that. So I'll leave that to the board to discuss. Yes?
Is it practical to have lights? Are there like night games for women?
The question
Or
was brought up
girls?
by the board.
I know, I'm
If we
just
wanted
asking if
lights,
it's-
I don't know if there's a whole lot of night games now. I don't think there was a need originally.
No, we play, the only night games we play are, Naugatuck and Mocha have lights, and we do play night games when we play at their fields. We would play night games if we had the lights. It would be nice to have that option, to be able to
And that
have
could
that.
bring income to the high school,
Well, you know,
so to speak, I mean, gate receipts and such.
yeah, it would, we
for games.
definitely, if we were playing night games, we would charge for the night games like we
Right.
do when we play night soccer games,
Right.
yes.
So,
So your recommendation would be to hold this money and budget for the lighting and
If-
try to carry this project over into next year?
If that's the board wish to put the lighting in, that's what I would suggest. So I'll leave it on the table, is that?
Andrew?
How many games, how many games would you project to actually utilize the night games for?
Well, we could, realistically, we could play all of our games at night, which would be 10 home games plus tournaments. We would be in the mix for the Naugatuck Valley League tournament, hosting that. Right now, it goes back and forth between Wolcott and Naugatuck. So that would be another, advantageous thing to have that tournament. We had the baseball tournament here the last 2 years. Yeah, and then it becomes a possibility that, the facility could be rented out for
AAU.
summer AAU programs,
That's where you're gonna.
tournaments, things like that.
Okay, so we spend the money for the lighting, and we earn money by charging for the use of the field. When we get that money for charging for the use of the field, how does that come? Does that come into the Board of Ed, or does that go someplace else?
So that would be,
To the athletics.
Okay, so,
right now, it goes to athletics, but I mean, that would be up to the board how you want to structure that.
because if we're talking about it possibly making money, it should make money for us rather than for someone else, right? If we're spending the money, at least
Right.
until the lights are
The
paid.
gate receipts come to us just like it would for football or soccer when we have night games. If it was an outside group, that money wouldn't come to athletics, that would come to the board.
That would be facility use.
Facility
Go to
use.
facility use.
So rental fees.
So there would be a
Separate.
possibility of outside groups using the softball field
Yeah,
for tournaments and.
What we did last year with the football field,
Mhm.
we were able to get a playoff game on the football field, and that was done through facility use.
Right.
CIAC wanted to
I
get.
haven't,
Specific charge.
I haven't looked at, AAU teams around the area, but it seems like that the AAU softball programs are growing every year. There seem to be new teams added, each year in the area. So,
So it's a possibility.
yeah, with the number of summer programs, utilizing softball fields in all the towns in the area, to have a facility that, isn't gonna be used by recreation departments, that would be there for the use of paying customers, AAU tournaments and things like that. That would be,
So that could be used by the recreation department?
well, only if you guys let them use it.
In the softball games?
That's our choice, if we choose to.
But it would be a real
allow them to use
field.
it. If we're gonna do a big
Yeah.
renovation there, we
Just
may
saying.
wanna close that out and use it just for only our use.
Okay.
Andrew?
Dave, you have the actual dollar amount to do it in 2 phases, one, I understand it's always nice to do a project once and you do it correctly the first time, but what would actually be the expenses, you do the field, and then if and when the board has the money to do the lights, you have the idea how much additional expense it would be to do the digging up and trenching.
I did not factor that in.
I would say, if you could separate it as two projects, a site job and then a lighting job. Put the foundations and conduits in the site job.
Right.
And then have the fixtures and the computer controllers as a separate project, because that's all aerial work, that could be done after.
There still would be an additional expense though to the
Yes.
site work that we don't have factored in.
No, I know, you'd have to figure in the foundations, the trenching, and then split it as two separate projects. Because you wouldn't want to plant the field and then rip the field up and then plant the field.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, maybe.
That would be like my lawn.
Unless you want to get 3 sets of numbers, that way do the project as a whole, or do it in 3 phases. Do the field so that we can definitely have that utilized, we know it's a done deal, and then have the infrastructure put in, that's the second number, and then the third number is no infrastructure underground put in, and then what would that number be to do it in the least convenient way, which is to dig up the field again.
Right. Well, we know with no infrastructure, it's 114,000.
Right, so,
We know the lighting's 161, but does that include installation of bases, or was that just fixtures?
That was the basis also.
Okay.
I always like to see kids get the use quicker than later.
All right, well, why don't you break that up for us, and we'll talk about it in September and see if we can't get something moving.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Potter, ED 099.
Yes, healthy food certification, it's in the packet. It's an annual form that needs to be filled out and witnessed in regular board meeting minutes that, we're going to follow the dictates of the healthy food program so that we're eligible for discounts from the state and federal government. So I guess that's really about it. It's the same thing as last year. Once it's witnessed in the board, I can send it in. They put it off this year. It was actually sent out late by the state, so this is cutting it kind of close, but that and free fruit and vegetable, which is not in the packet, which Donna Labby applied for this year. We're eligible for that. That menu needs to be sent to the state, so I'm working on that with Holly from Education Connection. And also the afternoon snack program is something that you have an option to pursue. And I'm gonna have Holly stop in here next week and meet the new interim superintendent. I don't know that you may have met her at one of the schools, but so they can convince a little bit. But that's it in a nutshell.
Any
Which is
questions on the healthy food? We've done this for how many years now?
Yeah, I'm
2?
Yeah.
Because we didn't do it for a few years.
No, we didn't do it the first few years I was on the board, and then we think we started 2 years ago.
2 or 3. This
Yeah.
would be the 3rd time.
well, I guess while we're on the subject, it's in the spreadsheet, but I talked to the state of Connecticut to find out for the EDO 1 how we're gonna handle the reimbursement for the free and reduced lunch deficit that we ran this year. And so I got that information. It ended up being $22,425. But this week, I was invited to the admin meeting, and I was able to meet with all the principals. And one of the things that we discussed is regular monthly meetings, which I think probably should have been taking place last year, but to get out in front of this so that, they're aware of what their balances are and try to keep it at a 0. And they're very open to doing that. And also as part of that, you had spoken earlier about the paraprofessional balance of people at each school. Working with the interim superintendent and Susan and Joe, we're going to make sure that on a monthly basis, the principals are eyeballing these rosters. And so that, you know, they're the ones closest to the action, and they know if a child is assigned a one-on-one and that child is no longer needing a one-on-one, that person doesn't need to go to that school anymore. Or, you know, I'm not gonna speak to your, you know, your business, but just so that those numbers are not as fluid as they were last year, because it was a nightmare right up until budget time, so, which you all lived with me.
Yeah, all right, so on the healthy food, we get so many cents, right?
Right,
Reimbursement,
yes.
so I think it's like $40,000 or $50,000, I think it was last year.
It's a
Somewhere near
good
40.
chunk of money. I don't have the exact number, I can get that for
40
you.
or
Yeah.
60,
It was somewhere in the 40s, I believe.
46,
Yeah.
47, I think.
Yeah. The only thing is, I'm trying to remember, because I thought last year when we got into the whole budgetary issue with the lunches, I thought we were putting through some paperwork so that way everybody would receive free lunches in Torrington.
We don't qualify, we looked into that. Dan.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We were close.
Unfortunately, we have some really, you know, needy kids in certain areas in some of the schools, but not across the board, and it needed to be below that threshold.
all over.
Yeah, you know, I don't want to say unfortunately, it's fortunate
Yeah.
that they're not needy, but
Uh,
in terms of getting that program.
So we're still going to be dealing with the issue for the coming year.
Right, but we gotta stay on top of it, so, you know, you guys don't end up, I mean, this balance was carried for a couple of years, or a few years, but it just.
Yeah, it's been growing every year.
Yeah.
Now, did we ever talk with our food service company to see about changing how they swipe their cards?
I asked them, at first.
Because I mean, it's
thought-
our equipment.
Yeah. Actually, maybe it probably wouldn't hurt to have Holly come back in and speak to, you know, the enhancements that they made in the program. She was very participatory in the process, so if you like, at the next budget committee meeting, I can pull her in, or the, you know, for the full board, whoever. But let me get you guys together and, but I could certainly broker that. That's all I have for this.
Any other discussion? Okay. Bylaw revision.
Reviewed in our committee, let's see, the only, the one change is found on page 3, number 5. Just appoint a committee and liaison assigned to the school, report back to the full board at each monthly meeting, subject to board approval. I see that. It was discussed, went through. And we would like to have the bylaws up on our website, so we need it, would like it approved.
No motion to approve.
It's just a, not yet, it's just,
When we get to action, we're just chewing fat right now.
Oh, go ahead, really like.
no, I'm not.
I still think we really need to add alternates to these committees. Again, last week we had a
It's in
meeting. It is? I can see that the committees.
Sure. We'll turn it back on, we just have to talk louder.
Yes, no? An alternate?
Maybe. Oh, yep. I have it. I hear you.
I didn't bring it in here.
You see how much the crowd went down?
Method to the madness.
There was.
Never mind, I'm looking at my wrong copy. Too many papers.
That was requested. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's long discussion, and, but we really need something up on the website with the bylaws.
So you have the alternates back in there?
They're back in.
Yep.
Excellent. Any other discussion on the bylaws?
I'll only point out that as recently as the last budget committee meeting, it couldn't be a committee meeting because one member was absent and one was at football practice. So
Yes.
it will be useful to be able to replace them.
Absolutely.
Right.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
And it was a long discussion.
Okay. Need a motion to go into executive session was your wording?
Protected Harbor MOA.
Protected Harbor MOA negotiations.
So moved.
We will invite in,
Second.
Discussion?
I didn't finish the motion, right? I have to get there first. Inviting in the interim super, and Mr. Luna from Protected Harbors.
So moved.
Need a motion, all right, Bill?
I'll give it a second.
Bill, and discussion.
Okay, just the justification for going, because this isn't a real estate negotiation, it's not information from our lawyers, because they're the ones not around. So what makes this executive session?
I have information from the attorneys.
Yes.
That's kind of specious, isn't it, to keep saying that because some lawyer said something to somebody at some time, that gives us
Well,
a reason to go to executive
during it,
session?
because it's a negotiation, and he has information from the attorney back to the board, it's attorney-client privileged, and they said they don't have to be here to give the information, so that we don't have to pay him to be here, but it is still the passing on of the torch, so to speak.
Okay, we've been stung by FOI a couple of times.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like sitting through those sessions where we have to listen to people tell us what a chimpanzee should know.
Yes.
So that's not gonna happen again, right?
They said it could be done in executive session.
Okay, well, I
It's
hope-
attorney-client information, so they're intending it to be privileged, they're expecting that we.
Because everything lawyers do is privileged. Oh, boy.
That's why they get paid. Yes, Andrew?
Want to invite the business manager? Has he been part of these negotiations?
No,
I would personally like the board to hear what's going on before we invite people in, because we don't know yet what's being proposed.
Which I can't say because it's from the attorney.
Right.
So,
Right.
we could,
The board should have the option to look at what's being proposed before we invite the people.
there is nothing formal writing here.
Oh, there is.
No. 'Cause as of 10:30 last night, we were still talking.
you can make it with a 2/3 vote, you can make it two separate executive sessions, and do one with just the board, and then one with the vendor.
And we need a 2/3 vote to go into it.
We would need a 2/3 to change the agenda to make it two separate, and then, yes, we would need a 2/3 to go into either one of them.
Well, there's already a motion and a second.
But the discussion of it is to not have the invited
We
people.
have to deal with the
into-
first one
Right.
first, though, the one that's on
Yes.
the floor.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? One, two, three, four. All those opposed? One, two, three, four. Okay. I'm missing something.
Jeremy's not here,
Oh,
so it's a tie, you're the
You're right.
tiebreaker.
okay. All right. You want to make a different motion? For a different
Yeah.
executive session?
Executive session first with just the Board of Education to hear the proposal.
Do we have a second on that one?
Okay, I'll do a second on that one.
So your motion is to amend the agenda to have two executive sessions, and then we have to do the motions to get into the executive sessions.
Right.
Her motion right now is not to have the second one. Her motion right now is to have the first executive session, to just have the board hear the proposal. Then we would have to amend the agenda to add another executive session, if we wanted to do it.
We can just do it, I think we could just do it all at once, would be the easiest.
It'd be
Oh, just
quicker.
going
I know.
to-
So,
So we have Fiona, Jim, or just Biore. Any other discussion on that one?
Yeah, we don't have to go into executive session if we don't want to, just because it's some lawyer telling us, advising us what to do, right?
You can always take attorney-client privileged information and decide that you want to share it with the world. That is
Well,
always an
taxpayers
option.
paid for it, why shouldn't they hear it?
It's not that the attorney's actually giving us advice. You're going to propose.
now they're giving us advice. I have the information from Christine that gives advice which way we should go. So,
Which we could hear in open session.
I would not not recommend that.
Yes, we could hear.
I'd rather hear it in open session.
How about if I make a motion that we go into executive session, just the board, and in 10 minutes invite in terms of superintendent and after board discussion, we invite in the other people.
You're amending your motion?
Yes, I'm trying.
Jim, are you amending your second?
I'll amend my second.
John, do you want to amend your discussion, or are you sticking with
I'm
yours?
sticking with my discussion
Okay.
and voting no for any executive session on this
Yeah.
basis.
All those in favor of going into executive session for the BOE for the first 10 minutes and then inviting in the interim superintendent and the vendor for the balance of executive session? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 3. 5, 3. Okay.
Not
That will kick everybody out.
It's not two-thirds, we're not in executive session.
No, you only need a majority to go into exec. You need 2/3 to amend the
To
agenda.
amend the agenda.